Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'd like to thank you all for attending. We're all working our way through some very challenging times right now, and we know that everyone is having to make adjustments in their daily life. Thank you so much for being here today. We've got a lot of great content to get through, so let's get started. I do have to do a nod to our legal slide. Please note that any forward-looking statements are not guarantees of future performance and that any names and logos used in this presentation are not endorsements. With that out of the way, let's get started. Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Wharton, and I'm a customer success manager here at Smartsheet. I'm joined by two of our product marketing managers, Brian Basand and Diana Ye, and I'm really excited to have them show you the valuable functionality offered by two of our most used premium apps in the higher education space. Questions during the presentation are definitely encouraged. To ask a question, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We'll also have a moment for questions at the end. Here's what you can expect from today's webinar. We'll review some of the most common use cases in higher ed for these apps, and then show you how your peers are leveraging Smartsheet's dynamic view and data uploader to scale their workflows. Again, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen for questions throughout the webinar. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a higher education specialist here at Smartsheet, and I'm not alone. We have a large team that works with colleges, universities, and other higher education institutions because we want to help you navigate the unique challenges you're currently facing. Right now, we work with over 2,000 higher education institutions who use Smartsheet to maximize their resources and transform how their work gets done. We're constantly blown away by the creative ways our customers are using the platform. We have thousands of documented use cases, and I've included a tiny slice of them here. From project and program management, to IT PMO, to capital construction, curriculum development, fundraising, and more, you and your peers are getting things done in Smartsheet. I want to call out that several of these use cases are asterisked. That just means that we offer pre-packaged solutions to address these use cases and help you get started right away. If you'd like to learn more about pre-packaged solutions, please reach out to your account team or fill out the form we'll link to in the chat. With that, I'm happy to hand things over to Brian Basand.
So when we talk about scaling Smartsheet, let's talk a little bit about what that means. So scale is kind of an abstract concept. I want to put some concrete what that means around that. So when we talk about scaling Smartsheet, we're generally talking about three different kinds of areas. One could be we want to bring more people or more projects into our fold for Smartsheet. So if you're used to doing, a single project with a single sheet or a single dashboard, maybe now we want to do 50 of those or 500 of those. Or if we're working in a small team, it's me and Elizabeth and Diana, but we want to scale that out to 300 people in our department, we probably need to start looking at some different ways of working with that and some different tools. Scale could also mean the systems and platforms that you're using with Smartsheet. So Smartsheet's great, you're working in your sheet, you're doing your tasks, you're using your automations and conditional formatting, but maybe we have outside data that we want to bring in from Banner, SAP, Oracle, some other outside system. Diana's going to show you a little bit of how we might do that today. And finally, the other way that we talk about scale is around organizational change. There's a lot going on in a lot of different businesses, and particularly in EDU right now. We really need to think big about how we're going to do things differently. And that's where a lot of these other capabilities of Smartsheet really come in to make a massive change inside of your organization and find new efficiencies. So the first one I want to talk about is really in that people and projects kind of scope here. And the product I want to talk about there is called Dynamic View. Dynamic View is a tool for managing multi-step processes that shows the right information to the right people at the right time. So if you've ever, looked at a sheet and said, hey, I want to share some of this information with people, but I don't want them to see the rest of it, that's an opportunity for using Dynamic View. Or if you've got a process where you need people to submit requests and you need to respond to those and you want to show them updates on those requests, that's where dynamic view can come in useful here. And I'm going to show you a demo here in just a second, but there's three things I want you to remember about dynamic view. Dynamic view is great for data access governance. So when you only want to show part of a sheet or maybe some of the columns or some of the rows to some people, dynamic view is going to help you manage who has access to what information is in the underlying sheet. What that also gives you is not just security around that data, but it gives a simplified view of what's in that sheet. So if my sheet has 500 rows in it, but Diana only needs to see 10 of those rows to get her job done, we can show Diana a simplified view of that so that she can focus on only the 10 rows that are relevant to her. And finally, we can provide in-context guidance. I think we've all had this happen where someone points you to a sheet or a document and you're like, what am I really supposed to do here? What do I put here? What do I focus on? The experience inside of dynamic view is totally customizable, so that the person building a dynamic view can make it really clear what kinds of information the submitter should put where. And what this really does is simplify the back and forth that a lot of us are doing over email to say like, oh, I need to know this. Okay, how much is it going to cost? It goes back and forth. Get that submission done right the first time and make that all much smoother. So with that, let's talk a little bit about where you might see some of these use cases. So I'm going to show you a ticketing system here in just a second. So think requests to the IT department, requests to the curriculum development department, facilities kind of requests, anything that someone wants to submit a request and see status updates on that. But we can also use that data access governance capabilities for a lot of other scenarios. Think about like vendor management. Maybe in a facilities management kind of capacity, you've got the team that keeps your systems, electrical and plumbing up and running, and then you've got your custodial contractor. You don't necessarily want them to see each other's job items or rates. So I could build a dynamic view that only shows the items that are relevant to them. And we can apply that kind of concept towards things like contract management or order management. And even we can manage multi-step processes and performance reviews. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. So let's go ahead and jump into a demo. So think about this as your view. As an administrator in your department or in your program at your university, think about what you want to see from all the requests that you're getting. You can build this dashboard. It's just a simple Smartsheet dashboard. I'm not even talking about dynamic view yet at this point. But where you want to get to is where you can keep track of everything that's going on in those requests that you're taking in. And I've built a pretty generic example. I know EDU request management doesn't mean a lot, but imagine if you are the IT department and you're getting requests for desktop support. If you're like a curriculum development department and you're getting requests for help on designing new syllabuses. If you're kind of a transformation office and you're getting requests from staff on, hey, how do we teach in this new digital kind of hybrid learning environment? You could take in requests like this. And based on Smartsheet, you can see metrics on things like how long does it take to assign this task to someone? How long does it take to actually complete this? How many requests have we gotten? What's the status of those? Are they not started? Are they in progress? I can see here that the business school is placing most of these requests. We should go check up on that. And I can see who's answering these requests. It looks like Phil here, the second column on the bottom right. He's doing most of the work. We should check on Phil and we should see how his workload looks like. So far, this is just Smartsheet. This is a dashboard, totally customizable. Do whatever you want on this based on the data that you have. Where dynamic view gets cool, though, is when we look at the actual data, how we collect this data. So let's go over and look at, this is the dashboard where we're collecting these requests. Again, just a simple dashboard, totally customizable. I put that header in there. You can put some contextual text in there. I've got some links to outside resources. What I've also got on this dashboard is my dynamic view embedded into the dashboard. So I can put context around the way I'm collecting that information. And right now, this dynamic view is set to only show the work items that I have submitted. So when I look at this, I see that I've got 2 requests I've submitted right here. Right now, my meal card needs activation, and I need some help with curriculum development for Econ 101. Again, Probably not things I would submit to the same portal. I would build two for those kind of things. But I can get a constant in real time update on how those are doing. So if the administration comes in and starts responding to this, these will get updated and I can see those work items. Let's go ahead and look at what it looks like to submit a new item here. So when I click on new item here in Dynamic View, I'm going to put my name as the requester. And again, that is what is feeding this Dynamic View and making sure that I can keep track of the status here. Now, the administration will not let me put in a request ID or modify the status. Those are customizable controls in the configuration of this Dynamic View. They're going to auto assign a request ID to me so that they can keep track of it. And they're going to update the status on the work that they're doing for my work item. It doesn't make sense that I, as the requester, should move this to like in progress or completed. So they've limited my ability to control that. I'm going to call this a faculty request. I'm not going to make you watch me do anything here. So we're just going to put lorem ipsum. Again, these are all customizable fields. The person that built the view decides what information they want to collect. And again, I can pick the date that I think this is due, but I can't modify the completion date because I'm not the one completing the work item, right? So when I hit save, it's going to automatically get added here to my Dynamic View. And again, I can track the status of that. As the administration comes in and adds notes or changes the status to in progress or to completed, I'll be able to keep real-time updates on what the administration is doing there. And on the back end, this Dynamic View is just fed from a sheet. So if I hit refresh here, let's hit refresh. We're going to see my new entry right here. We've automatically assigned it a request ID, and now the administration can go in and respond to that. The next step in this would probably be to build a Dynamic View around who's going to do these work items. So over here on the right, I've got an assigned to column, and you can see a bunch of these are empty, and we've got a bunch for like Dan and Paul and Phil and Curtis. The program administrator here should probably build a view that is specifically for the people working on these items. And they're again going to limit it to people in that assigned to column. So Dan, when Dan signs in, is only going to see the items assigned to Dan. Curtis is only going to see what's assigned to Curtis. And we can also do that as multi-step processes. So think about like a performance review scenario where I, as an employee, need to submit my self-review. And when I'm done with that, it's going to automatically hand off to my manager. My manager can see what I've submitted, but they can't edit what I've submitted because those are my responses, right? They can submit their responses, lock that all down based on the configuration of the Dynamic View, and we can send that off to our VP. So there's a lot of customization that we have in the ability here to see who can see what information, what they can modify, and automate multiple steps there in that process. So think about your ticketing systems, think about your requests, think about anything where you need people to see real-time updates on the work items that they've submitted, but they should not see the other work items that other people have submitted. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Diana, who's going to move on to the next step in this process. How can we bring in outside data from other sources out there in your environment?
All right, so today we'll be talking about another product that we have in our suite called Data Uploader. But before we jump into that, I first want to talk about how we see organizations bringing information together. Today, we see two main ways of getting this done. First, an error-prone manual process that businesses or organizations take when working with separate systems and different types of data. This often requires a ton of different steps like manual imports, exports from legacy systems, manually copying and pasting between programs, and then needing to cleanse the data and reorder the data just to make it fit how you want it to showcase. It can take one person hours to achieve just one subset of data and make it the way that you want it to be shown. So to alleviate some of these issues on some of these manual processes, some organizations, schools often require expensive custom solutions, which require IT resources or even contractors that may not be readily available or maybe cost too much to develop. So our solution for that is a tool called Data Uploader. Now, Data Uploader helps you align your data by integrating your systems to create a single source of truth that allow for up-to-date information required to make confident decisions in your day-to-day work. You can automate your processes, which ensures the accurate, efficient, and timely completion of your businesses, from simple data transfers to even multi-step workflows. And then lastly, it's really configurable. So no matter what department you're a part of, no matter what workflow you have, you can modify and build various ones based on your business or your stakeholder needs. So what exactly is this? So Data Uploader is a system designed to automatically merge or replace data from third-party systems into Smartsheet without the need to manually copy and paste any of the data. It allows for a one-way connection of any CSV Excel file based data from your enterprise systems into Smartsheet to enable that visibility in a single place. And kind of how I mentioned before, there are a ton of different things that you can automate between logistics management, field operations, grant management, capital construction. One of the most useful aspects about Data Uploader is that it can universally apply to all different departments. It's really great for business users looking to easily centralize this data from multiple systems to have that visibility in a single place. So how it works is you export information from your systems into a CSV or an Excel file. So whether it's Oracle, Banner, SAP, virtually any CRM or ERP database, even your homegrown solutions can export into these different file types. Once you have that file, we'll use Data Uploader to upload that information right into Smartsheet. You can choose to replace all of that content in your Smartsheet or actually merge it with the existing data. And why don't we go ahead and jump into how it works. Right now, I have a Smartsheet dashboard where we are looking at a grant expense tracking solution. So you'll see here, we have information about our budget, how much we've spent so far, even the percentage of our budget that we've gone up. You'll see right now, everything is at $0. But in just a few minutes, we'll actually put in the CSV file to update all of these values. This dashboard is a really good way to centralize data about anyone who wants an overall view of their budget information. You can even track specific spend breakouts by category, by different funds. You can really specify what information matters most to you. So this dashboard is powered by an underlying Smartsheet. You'll see here, we're looking at the budget tracker itself, and you'll see we have information about what project it is, the expense type, what our budget is, even who the vendors may be. And to fill this all in, we'll jump over and then add a simple CSV file straight into Smartsheet. In a few seconds, it'll go ahead and trigger, but in the meantime, I'll actually jump over into Data Uploader to show you how one of these is built. Data Uploader is a separate interface than Smartsheet, and to set it up, the first thing you need to decide is the source. So where in Smartsheet or a cloud drive are you actually receiving the data that you want to import? For me, mine is just a CSV file that I manually drag into my sheet, so mine is a Smartsheet attachment. The next step after you choose where your source information is to determine where the target information is going to go. So what sheet do you want this information to update? In a lot of scenarios, it might actually be the same sheet that you're already working on. And you'll see mine, it's that budget tracker that we were just looking at. The next step is to determine whether you want the data to merge with existing data on the sheet, or you could even replace the entire subset of data, or even update any drop-down columns you might have. A lot of times when you are exporting a CSV from one of those ERP systems, not everything in the CSV file may be relevant to what you want to import into Smartsheet. So you can use the filter option in Data Uploader to determine what information you want to filter out and not enter into your Smartsheet environment. The next step is to map your information. So basically, you're aligning the information from your CSV file with the respective Smartsheet columns. Once this is mapped, you then determine how often you want this to run. Either you can run on an attachment, so when a new attachment gets added to the Smartsheet itself, or if you have a cloud storage drive that you use, you can actually set it to run on a schedule. All right, so let's jump back into our budget tracker, and you'll see this information all just got populated. So that entirely blank sheet now has information from our ERP system just by adding that CSV file directly to this sheet. And if we jump back into our dashboard and do a quick refresh, you'll see we have that new information that came in that now has information about our budget, expenses, percent to budget, so we can easily track everything in one single place. Data Uploader is incredibly versatile, and you just saw how easy it was to replace hours of manual work in copying and pasting. So that's all I have to show you guys about that today.
Well, we are now have a few questions for our panelists. Thank you guys for all the amazing questions we're getting on the Q&A. We are answering some of them within the Q&A. We'll do a few live, and if we don't get to questions, you'll hear a follow-up from your account team as well. So Brian, one of our viewers was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the differences between where a dashboard would be better and where work apps would be better.
Sure, great question. And think about those as solutions along the same spectrum. It's definitely not an either or, and the capability of work apps to embed dashboards really kind of expands on that. Let me speak to work apps for a second, because I don't know that everyone on the call is going to be familiar with that. A lot of times, whatever program that you have, we say business program a lot, but also university program, has multiple Smartsheet objects associated with it. Maybe you've got a dashboard, you've got a form where you want to submit stuff there. You want to be able to kind of bundle all those things up to help people find how they need to interact with that program. And then maybe you want to create different collections of those objects for different groups. The leadership only needs to see the full dashboard, and then people that are participating in the program need to see like a dashboard and a form, and then the people that are executing on the program need to see the full set of data where it's multiple sheets and dashboards associated on their side. Work apps helps you bundle all those things together and kind of configure who sees which of those objects. Dashboards are great for smaller, simpler scenarios where you need to just convey kind of one pane of information, maybe one form, embed one dynamic view. Work app starts to make sense as your program grows. You've got different roles: leadership, execution, participants. And you've got a lot of different objects, multiple forms, multiple dashboards, multiple sheets. Work apps is going to help bundle those up together.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Another question we're getting a few times in the chat is about embedding dynamic view. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I placed a link in the chat. I think it's a web content widget. It exists already inside of your dashboard builder. So add a web content widget. It'll ask you for the URL. Drop the URL of your dynamic view into that. It'll magically appear, and you can move it and size it like any other dashboard widget. So no fancy skills required there.
Thank you. So I've got another question, and this is about data and different sizes of data. It looks like Diane is answering that one in the chat, but I think the user brings up a good point about different like restrictions that you can put on data that's being brought in with Data Uploader. Diana, can you speak a little bit to how flexible you can be in filtering and just like all the different things you can do when you're
Sure.
wanting to, yeah.
So data uploaders limits are in line with Smartsheet limits. So we are able to upload 20,000 rows worth of content. In terms of the question that I think was asked, is that it asked about whether or not, like if you have a different amount of data every time, so maybe 5,000 rows one week and 10,000 rows another week, how dashboard graphs and charts actually can fluctuate with that. And the answer to that is actually with formulas. So with formulas in Smartsheet, you can choose to reference entire columns of data. And actually last month, we released a new functionality called column formulas. You can find more information on our help center about that. But by using these column formulas, you can actually pick entire columns worth of data. So no matter how many rows are imported via data uploader, your graphs will always update to incorporate all of your content.